I caught my wife cheating and my own mother testified against me in court to force me to raise the baby. Because family comes first, but the DNA test exposed everything. The night of our 5th wedding anniversary was perfect. Jennifer looked stunning in her red dress as we toasted champagne at La Maison, the restaurant where I proposed. I had everything a man could want: a stable engineering job, our dream house in the suburbs, and plans to start a family. Until I saw that text notification pop up on her phone. A message from Jason that would unravel my entire life. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are from and hit that subscribe button before I tell you how my own mother betrayed me in the worst possible way. The first sign something was wrong started about 6 months before our anniversary. Jennifer began coming home later than usual from her marketing job. When she did arrive, she was irritable and distant. I blamed it on work stress. We were both climbing our respective career ladders, putting in long hours to secure our future. I told myself this was just a phase, that all marriages go through rough patches. Then came that text from Jason, from the office. I was not snooping, I swear. Her phone chimed while she was in the shower, and the preview appeared on her lock screen. Just a snippet, but enough to make my stomach drop. Something about missing her touch and counting the hours until they could meet again. I put the phone down, feeling like I had been punched in the gut. I spent the next week in denial, telling myself I had misinterpreted an innocent message. Maybe it was for a work project. Maybe Jason was gay, and they were just close friends. I created a dozen scenarios in my mind, anything to avoid the obvious truth. But I started noticing other things. The unfamiliar cologne lingering on her clothes. The secretive phone calls she would take in another room. The way she guarded her phone, always keeping it face down or in her pocket. Each little detail was like a paper cut, small but painful, and they were adding up. I finally called my best friend Frank for advice. We had been friends since college, and he had always been my voice of reason. Over beers in my garage, where Jennifer would not overhear, I told him everything. You need to know for sure, Nelson, Frank said after listening to me pour my heart out. This uncertainty is eating you alive. He was right. I needed concrete proof, either to confirm my fears or to put them to rest, so I could apologize to Jennifer for my paranoia and we could move forward. The opportunity came when Jennifer thought I was flying to Boston for a 3-day conference. I told her goodbye that morning, drove to the airport, then circled back and parked my car 6 blocks from our house. I spent the day at a local coffee shop, then walked back in the evening, letting myself in through our back gate. Our bedroom window faced the garden. As I approached, I could hear music playing inside. And then voices. I crept closer, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might explode from my chest. Through a gap in the curtains, I saw them. Jennifer and a tall, dark-haired man I recognized from her company Christmas party, Jason from accounting. I watched for exactly 37 seconds. Long enough to see them kissing passionately, to witness Jason unzipping my wife's dress. Long enough for there to be no possible innocent explanation. Then I walked around to the front door, unlocked it, and entered the house. The music stopped abruptly. I heard frantic whispering, the sound of clothes being hastily put on. When I walked into our bedroom, Jason was buttoning his shirt while Jennifer sat on the edge of our bed, face flushed. "Nelson," she gasped. "What are you doing home?" The conference was canceled. I lied, my voice remarkably steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. Jason had the decency to look ashamed. "I should go," he muttered, trying to slide past me. I blocked his path. "How long?" I asked, looking straight at Jennifer. She did not deny it, did not even try. Instead, she went on the offensive. "This would not have happened if you had been more present, Nelson. When was the last time you really saw me? Really listened to me? Jason understands me." Her words were like acid burning through the last 5 years of what I thought had been a happy marriage. Had I been neglectful? Was this somehow my fault? For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost apologized. But then I remembered the anniversaries I had planned, the weekend trips, the little notes I left in her lunch bag. I had been present. She was rewriting our history to justify her betrayal. I stepped aside and let Jason leave. Jennifer and I argued for hours after that. She cried, screamed, then finally admitted the affair had been going on for over a year. 1/5 of our entire marriage had been a lie. I moved into our spare bedroom that night. We barely spoke for the next 2 weeks as I tried to figure out what to do next. Then came the second bombshell. Jennifer knocked on the door of the spare room one evening, her expression a strange mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I am pregnant," she announced. "And we need to work things out for the baby's sake." I stared at her, uncomprehending at first, then with growing horror, as I did the math. "Is it mine?" I asked. "Of course it is," she snapped. "And I want us to try again to be a family." "I want a DNA test," I said. Her face hardened. "If you demand that it shows you do not trust me, and if we cannot have trust, we cannot rebuild our marriage." I almost laughed at the irony. She had betrayed my trust in the most fundamental way possible, yet she was demanding blind faith from me now. "If it is my child, I will take responsibility," I told her. "But I need to know the truth." She left the room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning she was gone, leaving a note saying she was staying with her sister. 3 days later, I received divorce papers. I drove straight to my parents' house after being served the divorce papers. I needed my family. I needed their support and wisdom to navigate this nightmare. My parents had been married for 40 years. If anyone could help me through this, they could. My father William greeted me at the door with concern etched on his weathered face. I always saw myself in him, the same broad shoulders, the same quiet demeanor. He led me to the kitchen where my mother Diana was preparing dinner. Her eyes widened when she saw the manila envelope in my hand. I told them everything: the affair, the pregnancy, the divorce papers. I expected outrage on my behalf. I expected my mother to pull me into one of her fierce hugs and tell me everything would be all right. I expected my father to offer his steady, practical advice. What I got instead was silence. My father stared at his hands on the table. My mother pursed her lips, looking not at me, but at some point over my shoulder. Well, I finally prompted. "Say something." "You have always been impulsive, Nelson," my mother said. "Have you considered that perhaps Jennifer made a mistake but wants to make things right now for the baby's sake?" I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. A mistake. A year-long affair was not a mistake. It was a deliberate series of choices made day after day. "Mom, I am not sure you understand. She cheated on me, repeatedly, with her coworker, in our bed." "I understand perfectly well," my mother replied, her voice taking on the stern tone she had used when I was a child who had disappointed her. "I also understand that there is an innocent baby involved now. Your baby. And a real man takes responsibility for his children." My father remained silent, avoiding my gaze. His passive acceptance of my mother's words felt like another betrayal. Thankfully, my sister Amanda arrived then. 3 years older than me and fiercely protective, she took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. When I explained again, her reaction was everything I had hoped my parents would provide. "That manipulative witch," she exclaimed. "And Mom, how can you take her side? Nelson deserves better than this." "This is not about sides, Amanda," my mother replied. "This is about family. About a child who deserves to know its father." It went on like this for hours, with Amanda defending me, while my mother made increasingly outlandish arguments about my supposed responsibility. My father occasionally murmured something non-committal, unwilling to openly contradict either his wife or his son. I left feeling worse than when I had arrived. The one place I had expected unconditional support had instead become another battleground. As the weeks passed, the situation deteriorated further. Jennifer had apparently been sharing her version of events within our social circle. Former friends crossed the street to avoid me. Neighbors who used to wave now looked away. At work, I caught colleagues whispering as I passed their conversations, abruptly stopping when I entered the break room. The narrative Jennifer was spinning was clear. I was an unfeeling husband who had abandoned his pregnant wife at her most vulnerable moment. Only Frank and a handful of other close friends knew the truth and stood by me. The legal battle began in earnest when Jennifer filed for full custody of the unborn child, along with substantial alimony and child support. To my shock, she had retained Bernard Johnson, the most expensive divorce attorney in the city. There was no way she could afford his services on her marketing salary. Then Frank spotted my mother having lunch with Jennifer at an upscale restaurant downtown. The pieces fell into place. My own mother was financing my wife's legal team. I had to drain my savings and take out a loan to hire Sarah Winters, a tough but compassionate attorney recommended by Amanda. When I explained the situation, including my doubts about the paternity, Sarah was direct. "We need to petition the court for a DNA test immediately," she said. "If the child is not yours, it changes everything about this case." But preparing for the legal battle was only part of my struggle. The deeper wound was my mother's betrayal. I confronted her one evening driving to my parents' house when I knew my father would be at his weekly poker game. "How could you help her fight against me?" I demanded, as soon as she opened the door. "Your own son." My mother sighed as if I were being unreasonable. "I am helping my grandchild, Nelson. And I am helping you, though you are too stubborn to see it." "How exactly are you helping me by paying for her lawyer?" I asked incredulously. "By keeping this family together," she replied, her voice rising. "Jennifer made a mistake, but she wants to make it right. She wants you to be a father to this baby." "And what if it is not my baby?" I countered. "What if it is Jason's?" My mother flinched at that. "Do not be ridiculous. Of course it is yours." "Then she will not mind a DNA test." "Those tests can be wrong," she said dismissively. "And demanding one only shows your lack of commitment. You need to step up, Nelson. Stop running from your responsibilities." It was like talking to a wall. Whatever fantasy my mother had constructed about saving her grandbaby and preserving some perfect family image, she was committed to it regardless of the facts or my feelings. The final blow came when Sarah called me into her office 3 days before our first court appearance. "There has been a development," she said gravely. "Your mother has agreed to testify on Jennifer's behalf." I felt physically ill. What could she possibly testify about? Sarah slid a document across her desk, a witness statement my mother had provided to Jennifer's attorney. In it, she detailed times I had allegedly been inattentive or dismissive toward Jennifer. She claimed I had always been work-obsessed and emotionally unavailable, just like my father. She even dragged up incidents from my childhood to paint me as someone who avoided responsibility. Every word was a knife twisting in my gut. My own mother was not just supporting my unfaithful wife, she was actively helping to destroy me in court. The weeks leading up to the court date were the darkest of my life. I could barely focus at work, making costly errors that put my job at risk. My boss, Tom, called me into his office after I missed a critical deadline on the Peterson project. "Nelson, I understand you are going through personal issues, but this has to stop," he said, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. "Take some time off if you need to, but I cannot keep covering for you." I was too exhausted to even feel properly ashamed. I thanked him for his patience and promised to do better, knowing it was a promise I might not be able to keep. In the evenings, I worked with Sarah to build our case. We had managed to find a hotel clerk who remembered seeing Jennifer and Jason together on multiple occasions, including dates that predated our marriage. The clerk, Miguel, had worked at the boutique hotel downtown, where Jennifer claimed to be attending marketing conferences. They always booked the same room, Miguel told us. Room 412. They were not exactly discreet. The one in these photos, she once mentioned that her fiancé thought she was at a seminar in Chicago while she was actually there with the other man. This revelation hit me like a physical blow. The affair had not just been going on for a year, it had started before we were even married. Our entire relationship was built on lies. Sarah was thorough, gathering additional evidence, including credit card statements showing restaurant charges for 2 on nights. Jennifer claimed to be working late, and phone records revealing thousands of text messages between Jennifer and Jason. But Bernard Johnson, Jennifer's attorney, was filing motions to exclude most of this evidence as irrelevant to the custody issue. The first court date arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. I barely slept the night before, and the face that greeted me in the mirror looked like it belonged to a much older man. Dark circles under my eyes, new lines etched around my mouth, a gray pallor to my skin. The courtroom was intimidatingly formal. Jennifer arrived, looking perfectly put together, in a modest navy dress that accentuated her slightly rounded belly. She had mastered the art of appearing simultaneously vulnerable and dignified. Bernard Johnson stood beside her, radiating expensive confidence in his tailored suit. My mother and father sat directly behind Jennifer, a visual statement of their allegiance that made my stomach clench. Only Amanda sat on my side, along with Frank and his wife Teresa. The judge, an older woman named Judge Harriet Crawford, called the court to order. Jennifer's attorney went first, painting a picture of me as a cold, career-focused husband who had emotionally abandoned his wife during her pregnancy. Your Honor, Jennifer Adams has tried repeatedly to save this marriage for the sake of their unborn child, Johnson said smoothly. Mr. Adams has not only rejected these attempts at reconciliation, but is now cruelly demanding a DNA test, demonstrating his fundamental lack of trust and commitment. When it was my mother's turn to testify, I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. She approached the stand, avoiding my gaze, and was sworn in. Mrs. Adams, Johnson began. Would you describe your son as someone who readily accepts responsibility? My mother smoothed her skirt, still not looking at me. Nelson has always been reluctant to face consequences, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the courtroom. Even as a child, he would blame others for his mistakes. She went on to describe incidents from my childhood distorted beyond recognition. The time I supposedly let my sister take the blame for breaking a vase when I was 8. The summer I quit the baseball team because the coach benched me. Each anecdote carefully selected and twisted to portray me as unreliable and selfish. Then came the final betrayal. In your observation, was Nelson attentive to Jennifer's needs during their marriage? Johnson asked. My mother finally looked at me then, a flash of something like apology in her eyes before she steeled herself. No, she said firmly. He was distant, just like his father. Always working, always at his computer. Jennifer tried so hard to connect with him, but Nelson has always struggled with emotional intimacy. I felt something break inside me. Some fundamental trust in the world, in the idea that parents protect their children. Sarah squeezed my arm, a silent reminder to maintain composure. When it was Sarah's turn to cross-examine, she was surgical. Mrs. Adams, she began. How many times did you visit Nelson and Jennifer's home in the past year? My mother blinked. I am not sure exactly. Would twice a month be accurate? Perhaps. And during these brief visits you were able to comprehensively assess the dynamics of their marriage. My mother flushed. A mother knows her child. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. And yet you were unaware of Jennifer's infidelity. My mother glanced at Jennifer, who stared straight ahead. I do not believe those allegations. Sarah changed tactics. Mrs. Adams, are you financially supporting Jennifer's legal representation? Objection, Johnson interjected. Irrelevant. Goes to bias, Your Honor, Sarah countered. Judge Crawford considered briefly. Overruled. The witness will answer. My mother shifted uncomfortably. I have helped Jennifer with some expenses during this difficult time, yes, including paying her legal fees. A long pause. Yes. Why would you do that, Mrs. Adams? Sarah asked. Why finance a legal battle against your own son? My mother lifted her chin defiantly. Because family comes first. Because my grandchild deserves a chance to have both parents in its life. And if the child is not your grandchild, Sarah pressed. If Nelson is not the father, he is the father. My mother insisted, her voice rising slightly. Jennifer has assured me. Sarah walked back to our table, retrieving a document. Your Honor, we would like to formally request a court-ordered DNA test. We believe it is in everyone's best interest to establish paternity definitively before proceeding with any custody or support determinations. Johnson was on his feet immediately. Your Honor, this request is merely a delay tactic and a further attempt by Mr. Adams to avoid his responsibilities. Miss Jennifer Adams has consistently maintained that her husband is the father of her child. Judge Crawford considered both arguments, then looked directly at Jennifer. Miss Adams, you understand that the truth will eventually come to light one way or another. A DNA test now could save considerable time and expense for all parties. Jennifer conferred briefly with her attorney, then addressed the judge. Your Honor, I have nothing to hide. But I believe this request demonstrates my husband's fundamental mistrust, which is precisely why I am concerned about his ability to co-parent effectively. The judge was unmoved. In my experience, Miss Adams' clarity serves everyone best in these situations. The court orders a DNA test to be conducted. Additionally, the judge continued, turning to Sarah. Do you wish to call the alleged third party to testify? Sarah nodded. Yes, Your Honor. We have subpoenaed Jason Mercer to appear at our next hearing. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Jennifer paled visibly, while my mother looked confused. The judge scheduled the next hearing for 2 weeks later after the DNA results would be available and adjourned the court. In the hallway afterward, I saw my father approach my mother. Their conversation appeared tense, with my father gesturing emphatically for perhaps the first time in their marriage. I could not hear their words, but his body language suggested he might finally be questioning her actions. The 2 weeks of waiting were excruciating. I threw myself into work trying to make up for my earlier mistakes. Frank made sure I was eating properly, sometimes showing up at my apartment with groceries or takeout. Amanda called daily, her unwavering support a lifeline I clung to. Finally, the day of the second hearing arrived. The same courtroom, the same players, but a different energy. Jennifer looked tense, Johnson less confident. My parents sat further back this time, my father creating a noticeable space between himself and my mother. Jason Mercer was there too, looking deeply uncomfortable in an ill-fitting suit, seated alone at the far side of the courtroom. He avoided making eye contact with anyone. Judge Crawford called the court to order. First order of business are the results of the DNA test, she announced. Sarah stood. Your Honor, we have received the results and entered them into evidence as Exhibit C. The judge reviewed the document, her expression carefully neutral. According to these results, she stated, Nelson Adams is excluded as the biological father of the child in question. The probability of paternity is 0%. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I felt a strange combination of vindication and loss. Jennifer buried her face in her hands. Most shocking was my mother's reaction. A gasp so loud it cut through the murmurs, followed by a low keening sound, as the fantasy she had constructed crumbled around her. Miss Adams. The judge continued. Once order was restored, do you wish to identify the biological father? At this time, Jennifer glanced at Jason, then back at the judge. Jason Mercer is the father, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Mr. Mercer. The judge addressed him directly. Are you prepared to acknowledge paternity? Jason stood awkwardly. Yes, Your Honor, he said. I am prepared to take responsibility. In that case, the judge concluded the petition for child support and custody against Nelson Adams is dismissed. Mr. Adams, you are free to pursue your divorce proceedings without these additional complications. As we left the courtroom, I saw my mother standing alone, my father having apparently left separately. She looked diminished. Somehow, the certainty that had animated her throughout this ordeal suddenly gone. When she saw me, she took a step forward, her hand outstretched, but I turned away. Some betrayals cut too deep for immediate forgiveness. The aftermath of the court hearing spread through our community like wildfire. Jennifer and Jason disappeared from town almost immediately. I heard they moved to Chicago, where Jason had family. I wished them well, not out of magnanimity, but from a desire to close that chapter of my life completely. My mother tried repeatedly to contact me in the weeks that followed. Daily calls that I let go to voicemail. Tearful messages I deleted without listening to fully. handwritten letters, explaining her actions, that I returned unopened. Amanda acted as reluctant intermediary, telling me our mother was devastated by her mistake. I was more interested in how my father was handling the situation. According to Amanda, he had moved into their guest room and was barely speaking to my mother. For a man who had spent 40 years avoiding conflict, this was a seismic shift. Meanwhile, former friends and neighbors who had shunned me began reaching out with awkward apologies and invitations. I declined them all. Their conditional friendship had been exposed, and I had no desire to rebuild those shallow connections. I maintained contact only with those who had stood by me: Frank and Teresa, Amanda and her husband, and a handful of colleagues who had reserved judgment. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into a challenging new project, implementing a revolutionary filtration system that our clients had deemed nearly impossible. My focus and determination impressed senior management, and within 3 months of the court case, I was offered a promotion. The new position came with a substantial raise, allowing me to pay off the loan I had taken for legal fees and put a down payment on a small but modern apartment downtown. The process of furnishing it became unexpectedly therapeutic, choosing each item deliberately, creating a space that was entirely mine, unmarked by painful memories. On Amanda's advice, I also joined a support group for people going through difficult divorces. I was resistant at first, uncomfortable with the idea of sharing my experiences with strangers. But the group surprised me. There was something powerful about being in a room full of people who understood the specific pain of betrayal without needing it explained. It was through this group that I met Katie, a therapist who occasionally facilitated discussions. Unlike the other professionals I'd encountered during my divorce, she never offered platitudes or rushed to solutions. She listened with genuine curiosity and compassion. After one particularly intense session where I had finally opened up about my mother's betrayal, Katie approached me. "That took courage," she said simply, "to speak about something so painful." I shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. "It helps that nobody here knows my mother." Katie smiled. "True. But it still matters that you gave voice to it. Betrayal by a parent leaves unique scare." We began talking after sessions, then meeting for coffee beforehand. Our conversations ranged far beyond divorce and family trauma. We discovered shared interests in hiking obscure documentaries and terrible science fiction movies so bad they became unintentionally hilarious. For the first time in over a year, I found myself laughing genuinely. 8 months after the court case, I finally agreed to meet my mother. Amanda had been pushing for reconciliation, concerned about the toll the estrangement was taking on our parents' marriage and my mother's health. I suggested a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, public enough to discourage dramatic scenes. My mother arrived early, already seated at a corner table when I walked in. She had aged years and months, her hair showing more gray, new lines etched around her eyes. She half rose when she saw me, uncertainty in every movement. "Nelson," she began as I sat across from her. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. "I owe you more than an apology." She continued, her voice trembling slightly. "What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you when you needed me most." Why, I asked the question that had haunted me for months. Why did you believe her over me? Why did you fight so hard against me? My mother stared into her untouched coffee. "I wanted a grandchild so badly," she whispered. "Your father and I, we tried for years before we had Amanda and then you. The doctors said it was a miracle we had 2 children at all. When Jennifer said she was pregnant, I saw my only chance at having a grandchild. That does not explain testifying against me," I pointed out. She nodded, acknowledging the truth of this. "I convinced myself you were making a terrible mistake, that you would regret walking away from your child even if things with Jennifer could not be repaired." She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. And once I started down that path, admitting I was wrong became harder with each step. I told myself I was fighting for family, for legacy, but I was really fighting for a fantasy that never existed. It was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. Not an excuse, just an explanation. For the first time, I saw her not as my mother, but as a flawed, complex human being whose own fears and desires had led her terribly astray. I am not ready to forgive you, I told her frankly, but I am willing to start rebuilding. Slowly, with boundaries. She nodded, wiping away tears. That is more than I deserve. We talked for nearly 2 hours that day, beginning the long, complicated process of redefining our relationship. It would never be what it was. The unquestioning trust of a child and a parent was gone forever. But perhaps something new, something more balanced and honest, could take its place. My relationship with Katie continued to develop, transitioning gradually from friendship to something more. We took things slowly, both of us carrying baggage from past relationships. 6 months after our first coffee date, she officially became my girlfriend. A year after that, she moved into my apartment. Through it all, I learned valuable lessons about trust, about the strength that comes from knowing your own worth, and about the importance of chosen family. Those who stand by you when blood relations falter. I learned that sometimes the deepest wounds create space for unexpected growth and new beginnings. Life is not a fairy tale with neat resolutions. My relationship with my mother remains complicated. Some days are easier than others. My father and I have found a new understanding, bonding over his belated recognition of patterns in his own marriage that mirror what happened in mine. Jennifer and Jason had a daughter, according to Amanda, who still occasionally hears gossip from mutual acquaintances. I wish that child well, completely innocent as she is in the chaos adults created. As for me, I am not the same person who celebrated his 5th wedding anniversary with blind trust and naive optimism. I am more cautious now, but also more authentic. More aware of my boundaries, but also more appreciative of genuine connection when I find it. If there is one thing this painful journey has taught me, it is that the truth, however difficult, is always less costly than deception, and that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted creates the necessary space for what you truly need. I wonder if any of you have experienced betrayal from someone you never expected. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had a family member take the wrong side in a conflict and how you handled it. Did you find a way to forgive, or did you have to create distance for your own well-being? Hit the like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe if you want to hear more real-life experiences. No matter what challenges you are facing right now, remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps someone out there feel less alone in their struggles.